Namaste mere pyare bachchon. Welcome back to another super quick revision explainer. I know exams are coming, so tension nahi. Let's master this chapter together.
देखो बच्चों, look at this map. It looks kinda like a big jigsaw puzzle, right? Well, that's because during medieval times, India wasn't one single country, like today. It was a whole collection of powerful, competing kingdoms. In this chapter, we're gonna see how all these pieces came together and fell apart in an epic story. Chalo, let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start with the first big player on our map. For a long time, if you were looking at North India, there was one major power that was dominating everything: the Delhi Sultanate. They were, you could say, the big boss of the north.
Now, inside the Sultanate, the Tughlaq dynasty was super ambitious. One of their most famous rulers, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, had this huge dream. He wanted to rule the entire subcontinent. And you know what? For a little while there, he came very close to actually doing it. And this map, wow, this really shows you what I'm talking about. Just look at that highlighted area. At its peak, around the year 1335, the Tughlaq Empire was absolutely massive. It stretched all the way from the Himalayas almost to the southern tip of India. It was the biggest empire India had seen in centuries.
But there's always a but, right? Ruling such a huge empire from Delhi was really tough. And while the Sultanate was busy trying to control the north, new powers, new heroes, you could say, were rising up in the south, ready to challenge them.
And this brings us to the absolutely incredible story of the Vijayanagara Empire. It was founded by two brothers, Harihara and Bukka. And here's the crazy part. They actually used to work for Muhammad bin Tughlaq. But they broke away, said no more, and established their own huge independent empire in the south. What a brave move!
And their capital city, oh my goodness, Vijayanagara, which we now call Hampi, was just legendary. You can still visit these amazing ruins. Seriously, after this video, just go search for Hampi travel vlogs on YouTube. It's absolutely mind-blowing. The city was huge. And hey, don't just take my word for it. A Portuguese traveler named Domingo Paz visited back then, and he wrote that it was, and I quote, the best provided city in the world. He said it was as big as Rome and filled with treasures. That tells you just how powerful and rich they were. So we have the Sultanate in the north getting a little weaker, and the powerful Vijayanagara Empire in the south. The stage was set for a big change. And that change came storming in from Central Asia. A new dynasty arrived, one that would change the map of India forever. I'm talking about the Mughals. And the man who started it all was this guy right here, Babur. In 1526, at the First Battle of Panipat, he defeated the Delhi Sultan and bam, established the Mughal Empire, an empire that would rule India for more than 300 years. Okay, everyone, pay close attention because this timeline is super important for your exams. You have to remember the order. First Babur, then his famous grandson Akbar, then Shah Jahan, yep, the guy who built the Taj Mahal, and finally Aurangzeb. This sequence is a classic exam question, so make a note of it. Now, Babur was such a fascinating character. He actually wrote his own autobiography called the Baburnama. It's basically like reading a personal blog from the 16th century. He wrote about everything with no filter. His wins, his losses, his feelings. He was a tough conqueror, for sure, but he also loved poetry and gardens. And why did he decide to stay in India? Well, he wrote it himself, because of its masses of gold and silver. The whole Mughal story is full of drama. But for your exams, the most important part is understanding the big difference between two of its greatest emperors, Akbar and his great-grandson Aurangzeb. Their time and power really shows us both the highest point of the empire and the first signs of trouble. Okay, exam alert. This comparison is a pukka 5-mark question, so please note this down. On one hand, you have Akbar. He was famous for religious tolerance. He even got rid of the jizya tax, which was a tax only non-Muslims had to pay. His goal was unity. On the other hand, you have his great-grandson, Aurangzeb. He was very devout and strict. He brought that same jizya tax back and even banned music in his court. So, Akbar's goal was inclusion, while Aurangzeb's was more about religious purity. This contrast is so important to understand the empire's story. And you can literally see this difference in the art from their time. On the left, from Akbar's rule, that's a scene from the Hindu epic Ramayana, but it's painted in the Mughal style. It's a perfect example of cultural blending. Now look right. You see Aurangzeb in a very simple formal court.
It really reflects his focus on piety, not so much on fancy art. The art tells you everything.
So, you're probably wondering, how on earth did the Mughals and the sultans before them manage to control such a huge and diverse country? It's a great question, and the answer is, they had some really clever administrative systems. Let's break them down. And here's another exam alert. The Mughals, especially Akbar, created an amazing system called the Mansabdari system. Okay, think of it like a company. The emperor is the CEO. He gives a rank, or a mansab, to his manager, who is called a Mansabdar. That manager's job is to keep a team of soldiers ready. And his salary? Well, he gets a piece of land, a jagir, and he collects taxes from there. This way, the emperor had a giant army ready to go, without having to pay for it all himself. Genius, right?
Okay, quick quiz time. Let's see if you were paying attention. What was the Mansabdari system? It was a ranking system used by the Mughals to fix the rank, salary, and military responsibilities of government officials. Got it? That's the perfect definition for your exam.
Now, the Mughals didn't invent this idea from scratch. The Delhi Sultanate had a similar but simpler system called the Iqta system. They also gave out land grants called Iqtas to their nobles. You can think of the Mansabdari system as, well, like the upgraded version of the Iqta system.
Now, it's really important to remember that while the Mughals and the Sultanate were the big players, they were not the whole story. The map of India was filled with other brave kingdoms. You had the Rajputs of Mewar, legendary for their courage and their amazing forts. In the northeast, the Ahom kingdom fought off the Mughals for decades. And in the northwest, the Sikhs grew into a major military and political power.
So, what's the big picture here? The crucial point to remember is that medieval India wasn't one single story. It was a rich tapestry, a beautiful mosaic woven together from the stories of many different peoples, many different cultures, and many powerful kingdoms all across our subcontinent.
So, what do you need to remember for your exam? Let's boil it down to 3 simple things. Number 1, medieval India was a time of constant change, with empires rising and falling. 2, to control their huge lands, rulers created smart systems like Mansabdari and Iqta. And 3, India's story has always been a mix of many different powerful kingdoms, not just one.
And I'll leave you with one final question to think about. Can an empire that's built by conquest be held together forever just by having a clever administration? Or does it need something more? Something like the trust and support of its people? Think about it. Chalo bachcho, that's all for today. Study well and you are going to do great. All the best for your exams.